Hi, I'm Meghann Scully and this is the Limerick Post Show, coming to you from Nicholas Street, where we're going to check out the newly opened Treaty City Brewery. We're going to talk to Steve, find out why he set it up, what it's all about and how exactly do you make beer. So we're here in Nicholas Street, where the Treaty City Brewery has basically just opened its doors, and I'm joined by the main man himself, Steve. Stevie, thanks so much for having us in here.
Thank you very much. Welcome to Treaty City Brewery, the ultimate craft beer experience.
Have to say, what an amazing location, what a stunning building. But you know what, I want to go right back to the very start. How did you set this up and how did you start making beer?
That's a great question. Treaty City Brewery started in 2014. I'm a manufacturing engineer by trade, and I wanted to kind of get out of the manufacturing environment but still stay on that kind of artisan level. So we started with a contract brew, which is I take my ingredients and I go and I brew on someone else's equipment. And then from there in 2016 we built the current brewery on Childers Road. So we have a large manufacturing facility up on Childers Road, about 3,000 litres per batch. My first beer I brewed, would you believe, on a second floor of a 3-story apartment in East Vancouver when we were there. Yeah, people were we were living in Vancouver for about, I think, 6.5-7 years, up as far as 2012, and around 2008 for Christmas party, we were doing a Christmas party one day, and everyone was looking for an Irish stout. So I said I could do Irish stout. I could try that. And myself and Richard Jones, a friend of mine, brewed a batch of homebrew Irish stout, and it was brilliant stuff. It was really, really good. But the only problem is we'd no ways of measuring the alcohol volume in it. Yeah. So what was supposedly a 4.2% Irish stout turned out to be about an 8.5%, I think. Wow. Yeah. Vinnie Crowley, as West Clare man as you get, 6'8", big buckle. He was horsing about 4 or 5 pints of it, and he fell over on the balcony. It was a strong beer. But from there, I really liked the idea of beer and manufacturing beer. And I was always, my father grows a lot of vegetables and we used to make cheese and make sausage just for our own consumption. But I liked the idea of him like a hands-on artisan product. So I kind of kept going and exploring. And I remember again at a beer festival I was at, and I bought a really expensive beer. I was trying to impress my girlfriend. Well, she was my girlfriend then, now my wife. And I remember bringing it home. It was like $20 or something. And I brought it home and I opened it, and it was absolutely horrendous. It was terrible. And then I went, and being an absolute cheapskate, I kind of left it for a half an hour, and I said, "There's no way I'm going to leave €20 worth of beer go off." So I went back and I tasted it again, and it was amazing. It had just opened up, the flavours had developed, and kind of like if you air a bottle of wine, or so the oxygen that got in around it changed the flavour profile of it, and I said, you know what, there's something in this, I really like this. And from there I started home brewing. Well, I know you mentioned Vancouver there. I suppose that kind of was one of the main places that revolutionised this whole kind of craft beer drinking phase. And I even know my own friends, they started drinking craft beers, and suddenly I found when we went to nights out, we were no longer going to the mainstream bars. They were going to bars to find these craft beers. So I think it really has taken off so well. And now it said you brought it over here as well. So it must be amazing to see that your product now has become so popular, and that so many people are actually so interested, not just in, I'll just have a beer there. It's like, no, I'll actually have this type and I want this amount, and there's so much to it now. It's amazing. Well, if you think about it, for years we kind of had a barren landscape in the beer environment, and we had fairly bland, fairly kind of neutral macro beers, and it's very similar to the revolution going on in coffee and in food. In Vancouver we saw it, and it took over. In 3 years you went from like 4 or 5 breweries, like GVRD, Greater Vancouver area is like 4 million people, and you went from 4 breweries to 25 breweries in a year and a half, so massive amount of expansion. And people as well, when people came home, and people here as well, right? So they started to look at their coffees, they started to look at their produce, where the beer is coming from, what kind of beer they're drinking. And I know personally, I don't mind spending an extra whatever it is for a good cheese or for a good wine, as long as I know the provenance and I know where it's going. And the same with, I think, that diversity in food and that diversity in coffee happened with the beer. So people are now going, you know what, it's the summer, I want a wheat beer, right? Or I'm sitting down watching Munster play the rugby, you know what, I want a red ale, that kind of way. And so I see a huge amount of that going on, and even we see it in our sales now, which is very strange if you think about it. So you see in the IPAs and the pale ales during the summer, and the lager obviously goes very well during the summer, but then coming into the darker beers and the richer beers coming into the winters. And people are following the trends, but that's not a new trend. Well, it's new now, but 100 years ago, that's what you would have done. As the season comes along and as the beer that's available or the cheese or the wine that's available, that's what you drink. What's in season is what you drink, I love it. It's
so interesting. Now, I have to ask, was it a massive risk coming home back to Ireland and then setting up, because at the time, craft beer, I suppose, was, you said, only kind of starting to take off. So tell me about the kind of, I suppose, the risk you're taking and the...
I don't really want to relive that, I'm trying to block it out, repressed memory and stuff. No, it was a huge risk. So I think a way of stepping stone for going in was the contract brewing, because I didn't buy the equipment. But in general terms, it was a massive risk. At the time there was growth there, but there was very few entrants into the market, so there wasn't that much competition. But now there's 70 breweries in Ireland. There's a lot of competition, and I knew that was coming because I had seen what had happened in London, and even as in the States, as goes the States, goes London, goes us, right? So I knew that there was a lot of competition coming. And you make a leap. I was an engineer by trade, so I was earning some good money, right? There was some good, and it's hard to kind of make that leap. There was a lot of sleepless nights, I'll tell you. There still is. Yeah, there's a lot of sleepless nights. But you just have to follow your passion. Right? You just have to follow what you want to do. I don't know. I give the engineering a crack, and my father is an engineer as well, and we've worked together, and I love it. I love doing it, but I just had to do something with my hands, and so my wife slowly agreed. I don't know if she's fully on board, even now, 5 years on. I don't know if she's fully there, but no, she's very supportive and she's brilliant. She really is. And I remember her saying, just follow your dream, go for it, and here we are. It's worked out so far.
Well, that's it. Here we are in Nicola Street in the brewery now, which we're going to go in and take a bit of a look around, and you can explain all the equipment to me and what exactly it is that you have here. And I want to learn all about your beers.
Yes,
let's do that. So now, Steve, we're in the room where all the magic happens, and I suppose the reason why you opened up the brewery here on Nicola Street. So tell me, what exactly am I looking at?
You are looking at the brew house is here behind us, and we have the cold block fermenters there on your right, or your right-hand side. So the brew house is where, as you say, all the magic happens. We mix in, this is the mash tun, where we mix water at about 80 degrees with our barley. Or malted barley. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to make a porridge. It sits for about an hour and 15 minutes, depending on the type of beer, and then that draws the sugar out. We get a sugary water with this barley in it. There's a false bottom inside here, there's a false bottom inside in this one, so it transfers from here into the whirlpool, and then the whirlpool separates that kind of porridge from the sugary water. So the sugary water is what we in brewing terms called wort. And that will be eaten the sugar will be eaten by the yeast and converted into alcohol and beer.
There you go.
Yes. So I love this. To be honest, I'm a fan of stainless steel. So this process here takes about an hour and a half and about a 15 minutes for the separation to happen. And then just behind you here is the boil kettle. So what happens is we boil for an hour and a half then to sanitize the beer. It also gets some Maillard reaction, which is a caramelization of those sugars. And if you taste Harris Pale Ale, it's got a lovely sweet kind of a caramelly note. That's partly due to the barley, but also partly due to the caramelization and the kit that we have on Childers Road, which will hopefully be reflected here as well.
Wow. So how long does it take from start to finish to make a beer?
Yeah, it's a good question. So if you look at the whole market, we'll say from a craft point of view, most of the beers would take maybe 3 to 6 weeks. 3 weeks for your normal run-of-the-mill blonde pale ale, 6 to 8 weeks, or 6 weeks generally for a lager. So lagering is actually to the technical term is to lager, and it means let sit. So basically you bring the temperature down and let it sit. So from here to here is about 8 hours roughly, depending on how early the guys get up and if they're firing the boiler correctly and if everything goes right, or if all the malt has been delivered. And then, but when it gets into the fermenters, which are here on your right, it takes about 3 to 3.5 weeks to ferment and mature.
Amazing, very, very interesting. Yes. Right, well, let's go check out some of these bottled beers that you have. So
yes.
Okay, so now here it is, your famous beers. Now talk me through each of them, and I'm so excited to learn so much because I do like craft beer, but I feel like I just don't know very much about the actual beers.
Okay. So we'll take you from start to finish. Well, not start to finish. From our these are our 4 core beers. So we have Hell's Gate Lager, Thomond Red Ale, Harris Pale Ale, and Shannon River IPA. So we'll start with the lager, I presume, I'd say, which is the easiest to kind of and most approachable of it. Hell's Gate Lager is a Munich-style export lager. We tried to make it as different as possible. Now, how do you make a lager in a sea of lagers that are on the market? It's most popular beer in the world. How do you make yourself differentiate yourself? So we made a Munich-style lager. We use a lot of Munich malt in it, and it has a rich kind of a malty backbone, but still very crisp, very clean. Is a good beer with cheese. I love it, and in hot weather. 4.2%, so it's not too strong. You can drink a couple of them. You could have it on a night out, and I love this in a really tall glass. Mid-afternoon on a hot day. It's absolutely fabulous. So that's Hell's Gate Lager. So then I'll go to the Pale Ale. So Harris Pale Ale. A Pacific Northwest Pale Ale. So this would be true to the style of Seattle, Vancouver, and Portland. That kind of in general. I should say I'll get into the detail about the hops and the malt in a minute. But so single hop edition, all Cascade hop, a lot of citrus notes in it, and I mentioned downstairs about the caramel notes in it, and that's what kind of gives our differentiating note. Really nice and sweet, but a nice clean beer as well. Very, very drinkable, and be careful of this one.
I think actually that is my favourite one. I think pale ales are always the ones I go for. So 5% as well. So
it's 5%. Yeah, you'll have your shirt off outside Henry Street roaring. It's 5%, but I like this beer because it's very, very easy drinking, and it doesn't drink as a 5% beer. But it has the key to drinking good beers is body, right? So. We think is a balance in the beer and body in the beer. So the body is determined by the mash tun and that porridge we were talking about, the temperatures that you mash in. I love the body in this beer because it fills them out, but it's clean on the palate as well. It's very, very good. And from there then we'll move on, I suppose, to summer, seeing as we're in the summer, right? Shannon River IPA. So again, a Pacific Northwest IPA, but a lot stronger. So you're on 5.8% now. So we're getting up there. Be careful of it, but it's a really great beer. Great with barbecues, burgers outside. I really love this beer in the sun. It's all Centennial, which is super citrusy. A lot of kiwi in it, a lot of passion fruit, and just comes through on the nose. Beautiful aroma off this beer. Really, really good. And again, I drink in a tall glass. My wife berates me. I drink my beer in a wine glass.
Okay.
In a big red wine glass. It'll open the beer and you can get the nose in it a lot better. And so I look like a... She always gives out to me saying, "Look at
her good wine glasses."
Yeah, exactly. Using the good wine glasses for it. Shannon River IPA. Again, we try to keep all these beers as simple as possible. So you've got 4 main ingredients, or 4 ingredients for beer. So you have water, malt, hops, and yeast. The malts will vary, so depending on the dark and the rich malts or the light and the base malts you use, it'll change the colour and the flavour profile, obviously. So for the likes of a Thomond Red Ale, which is our next beer, we would use about 1 to 2% roasted malt, which will give, we 5 different roasted malts we put in there, and it gives a real rich roasted kind of a caramelly sweet note to it. Very, very good beer. This is the kind of beer I would be drinking. I'd recommend, now the fire is on, it's October, you're watching the rugby, Thomond Red Ale is where I'm drinking. Really, really good beer. It's strangely enough, actually, a lot of chefs go for this beer.
Okay.
And if you're cooking with beer, and if you want to do like pulled pork or a barbecue sauce making beer, it's Keith Piggott now, or the guys in the Strand do a fantastic. Actually, Bakehouse 22 next door, when we had our launch night, they did little canapes, and they took some of the Thomond Red and they roasted, caramelised the onions in it.
God.
Yes, it was fabulous. They went very quick, I'll tell you that much. But that's Thomond Red Ale, 4.7%, so not quite as strong as the Harris, and a good sessionable beer when you're watching the rugby. Great to be able to drink.
One question I have, and it's something that I know I hear my friends talking about, and I hear a lot of beer enthusiasts, and I just kind of play along and pretend I know, but now I'm here with the main man, so you might as well explain.
Yes.
Hops,
okay. So I haven't got any to hand now, but hops are a plant that grows on a vine which climbs about 25 feet into the air, and they're bittering nuts. So they add two elements to beer. One is a couple of elements to beer, but the main two are bittering notes and aroma. They also have antimicrobial elements. So the hops will be added when we make that porridge. We separate the porridge then from the sugary water, and then we boil the sugary water. And during that time, we add hops. The hops go in like a tea. So the same as a tea leaf as you'd add into tea. If you add a tea leaf early, let's just say you let a tea cup or tea cozy or a tea cup with water in it sit for 10 minutes, and you add tea leaves at the beginning, it's going to be a strong tea. If you add them at the end, you'll still get the aromatics, but it'll be a weak tea. So we add it for bittering, which balances that sweetness. If you can imagine all the sweetness that comes out of those fabulous roasted malts, right? There's a lot of sweetness there and a lot of sugar. So what you want to do is you want to balance that with the hops. So there's bittering element in the hops. Now the different types. Sorry, am I getting too into?
No, because I see this has 4 hops and this has 1 hops. That's why.
Okay, so you see the element. Okay, so this would be this is the level of hop that's on the beer. Okay. So technically, what we have is all of these are single hop, meaning it's the same type of hop or the same variety of hop added to them all. But this would be a super hoppy beer. So the Shannon River IPA is a big hoppy beer. We put, I think, 20 kilos in or 25 kilos of hops into the beer. It's a lot in comparison to 2 kilos into this guy, right? So in a batch, now that's on Chiller's Road here, it'd be different, but so this is a super hoppy beer, which would mean it's super bitter and super aroma. You don't really smell too much of the base malt in this, whereas because there's not much hops in this, you'll get much more from the malt. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I feel like I'm learning loads now about beers. Brilliant. Steve, thank you so much. And I know the brewery now will be open to the public because you're going to run some tours.
Yes, so we're going to run tours. We're going to run them 3 or 4 times a day, and it'll be 7 days a week we're going to run the tours. We'll also be doing some experimental beers, so that small kit is going to allow us to kind of venture out into the world of different beers. We have some really exciting things planned, some one-offs. We had mentioned the stout earlier on, and then also some seasonal stuff. So what we want to do is to kind of track the wheat beers in the summer to the strong ales in the winter, and kind of do some seasonal stuff and releases. And also people will be able to come in, do tours of the brewery, get some tastings, and hopefully some events in the night as well, where we might be pairing with foods and getting some local chefs and stuff to come by and do some events. Oh,
all this talk of food and beer. Steve and Treaty City Brewery, thank you so much. I have to say, it's been so interesting. I've learnt loads, and I have to say, so proud that you're producing a Limerick beer as well.
Thank you very much for everything, and big hello to all the listeners.
Well, that's it from Treaty City Brewery here on Nicholas Street. Make sure you get on down and take a tour of this place. It is so cool, and there's so much to see and do, as well as tasting all the amazing beer. That's it from me, Cian, and all the team. This is the Limerick Post, keeping Limerick posted.